What's going on?
Freddie, looking good, brother. Looking. What's happening?
Not much, man. Just get ready for the bowl game today.
Yes, sir. So how about our Steelers, man? Still alive. Still
Man, still
alive.
alive, still alive.
Life support.
Hey, but you know what? This is the second year in a row we were on life support. So
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But never count a Tomlin team out. Maybe they'll get hot. So
yeah,
first of all, how's the family, man? Give me updates.
everybody's doing good, man. We got a blended family. So, I got 5 girls and a boy, and they all are out of college. The last one is in college right now at North Carolina A&T. So
Man,
we just living it up.
that's quite the accomplishment, man. Like all that estrogen in the house. Did you have a man cave that you could escape to?
Absolutely, and still do.
I bet, and I know who runs the house, and it's not you.
No, it's not me. I take orders.
Yeah, so for the people who don't know about your post-college career, what did you do after college and what are you doing now? I know you are the HNC at Macy's, but just give us a rundown.
Well, Brian, I've been in logistics. I was just thinking about it for over 30 years now since college. So, half of that time, 15 years were for Polo Ralph Lauren. And then now coming on 11 years with Macy's in supply chain and logistics. So I've been doing that since college.
And you bet, it's hard to keep up because it's like, is he living in North Carolina? Is he in Atlanta? Is he in Oklahoma? How does that work? Like,
I actually live in Atlanta, on the suburbs of Atlanta.
Yeah, because last time I was up in the A, me and you and Degas got together for Penn State. I guess it was the Palestra game, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Penn State, and I think it was Iowa.
Iowa, yeah, didn't turn out so well for us. So the journey to Penn State. First, who are the schools that were recruiting you, and just talk about how you selected Penn State.
Yeah, so I had a few schools. I've visited Davidson in North Carolina. I visited William and Mary. I visited University of Tennessee and Tennessee Chattanooga, and then I visited Penn State. And that was a wrap.
So what was it about? Was it the football? Was it the whole experience? But it just felt right.
Yeah, it felt right. It was the whole experience. Penn State was a very good university at the time. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, so that played into it. And then, as you know, being my host, I mean, when Brian Allen gets his hands in you, nobody can tell you no. So,
the recruits, they all run into it. They were happening so fast and furious. I don't remember the specifics of the weekend, but I had a routine that I think was fun.
Yeah, you had a routine.
Yeah, because what I would do is we would do one night, we would go to the, predominantly white fraternities, and one night we go to predominantly black fraternities, because I think one of the misconceptions is, like, especially if you're an inner city kid, there's nothing there for you at Penn State, but, it's there. Whatever you want, you can find on that campus.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, and the guys that on the team, I got to give it to you. You guys were down to earth. You were honest. You're just a good group of people, right? So I sort of felt that when I was there, and I wanted to play. So I felt like I could play as well. So those were 3 or 4 of the reasons.
Right. Yeah. So talk about the leap, because not everybody can make that leap from high school to college.
I didn't make the leap. I fell short. Coming into Penn State, 6 foot with 2 pair of socks and some insoles, right? 160 soaking wet. It was a big leap. So, I knew the game, but the physicality of the game, being in shape, the mental part of the game, being on your own in college, I had some growing pains my freshman year for sure, as you know. And then me coming in with 2 chips on my shoulder, which you sort of knocked one of them off. I'm sure that story will get told today.
Hey, man, I have no agenda. I don't. So you say you had 2 chips on your shoulder. What were the 2 chips?
Well, I actually wanted to go to like an ACC school. I'm from North Carolina. Right. I felt like that I could make it in one of those schools, but that didn't happen. And then my size, you know, I was always the shortest one on my high school team and in college, definitely. So I always came in with the sort of little man, I got to prove myself kind of mentality.
Right,
So
right. Which is, yeah, that's understandable. And, you know, not having because we had 4 years on you, our class had been through it. So we were pretty, you know, but your class was very similar to our class because we had 5 freshmen. You know, coach hadn't had the chance to turn it around yet. We didn't even have a senior class my freshman year. Upperclassmen who were great leaders off the court and, you know, how to be Penn Staters. We felt that we were better than them. So we were really competitive, as was your class. And you want, you know, competitiveness between classes, and you want people to come in and, you know, trying to take spots. You know, people are trying to take your spot, so you're always fighting for that. And the basketball incident was just trying to make sure that you understood that we are a team and we're family. We're going to compete. We're gonna get after it. But at the end of the day, we're the same team. So when I knocked you down, it was a hard foul, and you just kept running. And so I just picked up the basketball and hit you in the back of the head with it. And it was a love tap, because our goal was to have a one team push each other, but you know, it was always going to be family first. So that was essentially the message I was trying to send. And, you know, it wasn't like, who's this freshman coming in trying to take spots? That wasn't it at all. It was, you know, we're going to be the best that we can be, but we're going to do it together. That was sort of the message.
Yeah, totally got it. I mean, it didn't take me long to get that. I mean, like I said, I mean, you know, that whole experience working out with you guys. I mean, we were practically living together, working out, traveling, eating, study hall. I mean, it was all family. So, but it was just funny. You know, I always think about that. I always give you a hard time about that anyway. So.
Well, and I think that some of it is because people know my personality off the court is pretty happy-go-lucky.
Yeah,
but it wasn't the same on the court. So I think
it wasn't.
But so many people find that hard to believe. But that, you know, like especially if you play football in high school, you play football. It's physical, and you get challenged every day. So I think the best thing that ever happened. This is for parents too out there. You know, playing multiple sports. I think playing football was so key to me being a good basketball player, especially on the defensive end. So tell me about how you and Money connected, because I think that was a pretty interesting story too.
Yeah. So when I got to Penn State, so let me take it back a little bit, because I didn't know this until later on, but I was probably not Penn State's first choice at point guard. I was probably 2 or 3 down the list, right?
I'm sure I was too. I know I was.
Yeah. So that's for you, Coach Parkhill. But I committed early. After I left, I landed at home and I told my mom, that's the place. I'm going to sign. I'm going to call Coach Dunn, and that's where I want to go. I don't want to go anywhere else. So when I called, you know, I let them know I wanted to go. So evidently, they wanted Money as well. So Money committed after I did. So they took both of us. And I think in the mindset, he was going to play point guard, right? So we both got there. I didn't know that at the time. He was already there, because I believe he got there the summer. He went to the summer sessions, and I didn't. I came in the regular time. So he was already there. He knew all you guys. He knew the lay of the land. So he was sort of like the person I just sort of connected to and just followed around just to get to know people and, you know, learn the campus, because it was a pretty big campus, right?
Yeah.
And then me coming from my high school, which is, you know, 98% African-American, to go to Penn State was really different, right?
It had to be a culture shock. Had to be.
It was somewhat of a culture shock, you know. Just the size and enormity of it was something to get used to. So we were roommates. So we did everything together. We worked out together. We took shots together. We lifted weights. We went bowling. I mean, we did pretty much everything. So
yeah, you know, it was impressive. I was telling Steve, I don't know if you saw the thing Steve and I did, but I was telling Weidman that was what impressed me as soon as he got on campus. First of all, coming up early, he may have been the first one to do that, from what I recall, is to come up before your freshman year. Mm-hmm. And so he was taking his lumps really early, and he was very adamant with me about, you know, don't cut him any slack, be tough on him, push him, And that's how he was the whole time. And I think, for me, it was like, well, I'm going to be out of here in the season, so I'm going to teach him all the tricks. And obviously I taught him too many tricks. The student became the teacher. But that's what, like, there had to be some kind of transition from, like when I was when Tom and Bruce and I, when we were freshmen, there had to be a transition to get us to where you got the program. So, we wanted to leave it in a better spot than it started. And I'm going to read off of just a couple. 87 wins, which was a record for a class, because it was you, Money, Ricky Jolly, Dave Deggets, Deron Hayes. That's fine, right? Yeah. So 87 wins. You guys always won 20 games. You personally, career-wise, I think you're one of only four to have at least 1,000 points, 600 assists, and you had like 472 rebounds, over 300 rebounds. So that's a pretty stellar career. And hopefully that shock to the system your freshman year kind of got you, helped you transition from the high school to the college level, I'm guessing.
It did, Brian. I mean, I got to give credit to all you guys. I mean, you know the stories. I mean, you guys literally pushed me when I didn't run. You pushed me mentally. You guys, challenged me to go to the weight room and get on the track and do all those things. In my
defense, other than throwing the basketball, it was more Hovass, and then off the court, Hovass and Blake hazing you guys. I wasn't in that. After I threw the basketball, I figured that's all I needed to do, and then Tom and Bruce kind of took over from there.
So, Brian, let's be real. There's nothing that happened in Penn State basketball from the time you set foot on that campus to the time you left that you wasn't involved in. So,
come on, man. I look, talk to my lawyer. I'm pleading the fifth. I got nothing to say about that. So another interesting story that Steve was talking about was his transition was pretty tough too. And you guys went to bat for him, which he didn't know until much later, but just talk about that conversation you guys had with coach and say, hey man, this is our guy.
Yeah, so you got to remember, my mindset now was not what it was back then. So the after season meetings, sort of dreaded them. But, I think coach called us in as captains and just was talking about different things, different scenarios. And then he mentioned Steve, and we love Steve, right? So when that came up, I think Dave was the one that really was, really adamant about, he's a good part of the team. He's a good teammate. And, he kept the locker room light. And that's what we needed, because coach was very intense. So you needed some levity and we needed to be light in certain situations. So that was part of what we did.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it definitely sounded like he appreciated that. And that was enough for him to really get moving and get, step up his game too. So, and so then you guys, like you and Money, I read some stats just a few minutes ago, but the one that impressed me is that you two are in the top 10 career-wise in steals at Penn State. So you guys were hell on wheels. And I don't know if you guys I know everybody knew that Money was a stopper, but I don't think you get as much credit as you deserve on the defensive end.
Brian, I look back at it, I was not great at any particular thing in my mind anyway. But I just competed. I didn't like to lose.
Steady Freddie.
Yeah, I didn't like to lose. I don't care what it was, I didn't like to lose. So very, very competitive and tried to do whatever we need to do. And Money goes without saying, right? You can't. That guy was definitely competing at every single thing. Every single practice was full speed. He was tough. He was a warrior. So you had to follow suit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that backcourt was hell on wheels. And the big turning point was that Wyoming tournament. First of all, why are we in Wyoming the dead of winter? That was my first problem. Now, at that point, I'd stopped being an instinctual player, and I was thinking too much. Mm-hmm. So coach had to make the change, and it was that Wyoming tournament. We lost both. I mean, that was just a brutal trip for everybody. And then he made the change, inserted you, because you guys had enough games under your belt by that time, I think, where Coach felt comfortable enough to throw you in. Did you feel like you were ready? I'm sure everybody wants to start, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I had chips on myself. I felt like I was ready from the start to play. Right. I probably wasn't physically or mentally where I need to be a D1 point guard, you know, when I first got there. So, you know, it took us, 9 games or so before, he told us in the locker room to turn your jersey over, right, from white to blue, right? And from that point on, like Money and I looked at each other and said, we're not turning this back over. So
no, and that, again, that's the sign of a healthy team where there's competition and you're not cutting anybody any slack. Because I know we didn't do that when we were freshmen and sophomores. So that was a necessary. And for me, I was still getting the minutes, and I was 6 man off the bench. Obviously, yeah, you want to start. But for the good of the team, that change had to be made again, because I was not the offensive guy that I was my first 2 years by that time. So, kudos to coach. I'm sure it was a tough decision, but for me, we were all about, we got to win. We got to leave this place with a winning program, which I think we accomplished. So, yeah, from that Wyoming tournament on, I'm guessing, I'm trying to think of some fond memories post class of '89. And I would think that beating GW to win the Atlantic 10 was number one.
Yeah, right? Definitely number one. They were tough, but just getting them to first of all, winning at the Palestra Temple to get there, right, was the first step. So that gave us a lot of confidence. And then having GW coming to Rec Hall for a championship, man, get out of here. There was no way we was going to lose that game.
Right.
So
yeah, and going back, for me. Because I stayed an extra semester after I finished, and for me, the proud papa moment was the time when you beat Temple for the first time, because we kept choking.
Yeah.
And we would always push them, but they would always find a way to win. And you guys finally got them over the hump, and that's when I kind of exhaled and said, "All right, this is going to be special for the next couple of years, right?"
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the biggest regrets for me, though, was not getting us past Rutgers at the RAC in the championship game. That was, every time I see that on the Big Ten channel, I have to
watch it.
Yeah,
I won't watch it. Yeah. Now, people will hit me up and tell me it's on, but I still won't watch it. Yeah. I can't watch it. It's not. It's brutal. Because we were there. We had those boys. And they were good. I mean, they were good that next year, too. Yeah. And they had like a 2 or 3 year run where they were really getting it done. Talk to me about the UCLA game in the NCAA tournament.
It was crazy, man. I mean, just sitting in the locker room looking at our name pop up against UCLA, we were very excited. But I tell people all the time, the first thing I looked at was, who am I going to guard? I mean, they had Derek Martin. They had, I can't remember the shooting guard name, but that's who I had to guard. They had Matkins. Yep. They had Don McClain. I mean, they had like 4 or 5 pros on the team. So that was what I was thinking. But then, coach did his thing. I mean, the first day of practice, he had that crazy look in his eye, like, we're going to beat them. We're going to do this, and he sort of brainwashes you.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. I mean,
that's leadership. Because if there was nothing, I mean, even you never experienced this, but even when we were not good, our first year, we weren't really that good. We took on his personality. So teams would come in and beat us, but they would limp out. Yeah. And that was all coach. He just, made us tough. And if you weren't tough, you weren't going to play. So I think that all led up to not being intimidated because it was UCLA. Like you guys were having, and you guys had swag too by that time.
I mean, that was not even a question whether we were going to be. I mean, we practiced hard just like they did, right? We were college students just like they were. So I don't think that even came to our mind. I mean, you know us, the 4 or 5 people on the team. That was not even an issue for us.
Yeah. You guys had it. It's always the younger ones that get it. Like, you got a warmer, softer version of coach than we did. Because winning cures a lot of pain. So
I think over time, my freshman year, I got part of the coach that you had, but over time, I think it got better. I think what I wanted to do is be the extension of him on the floor.
Which you were.
So we got along real well.
Yeah. What you are, because I always tell people, me individually, I don't ever remember getting yelled at, but I was just part of the team that was getting yelled at,
Yeah.
and I think you and Money were kind of you guys were like little favorites too.
No, scrap. Well, maybe later on in my career, but starting out my first year or so, not so much the case.
All right. So maybe I may have been embellishing because you were getting
You
it
got to
early
remember
on.
that year one had Loomis, and Loomis was not, Loomis was pretty tough too, right?
Right. I do remember that. So give me some fond memories off the stuff, like, because it's always about like the locker room, training table, road trips. What are some of the fonder memories of that?
Well, I mean, pretty much every road trip was a memory, right? So we always had fun. We had people that could make you laugh and do different things. So, but I would say winning at West Virginia.
That was
I
a
think
tough
that was
place to
probably
play.
tough place to play.
Because they didn't have a pro team. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They were throwing things at us. The fans, they were very boisterous, and nobody really told me first about the cannon that they shoot off before they called.
Yeah, we may have slipped our mind. Every year to warn the freshmen there's a big musket that's going to go off, and because they didn't have a pro team, their fans were rabid. That was all. I mean, West Virginia college sports was all they had, and they were probably the tough. Other than Rhode Island, I think that was a tough place to play too. Like a lot of people talk.
Absolutely, Rhode Island stuff.
Yeah, because nobody. Yeah, it was small in Rec Hall,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of people don't know. I mean, they were good then, and they talk about the rack. That was a tough place to play, but West Virginia, because it was so big and they were so not. Yeah, they would throw pennies. I remember one year they threw condoms, like they blew up condoms and were throwing them on the floors. Like, what is going on? Who are the guys that you still keep in contact with?
Well, obviously you, right? We were talking night before last about the game. Donovan, his son plays AAU, so when they come to the A, I usually try to get up with him. Mark Jones and Wes Jones live, 10, 15 minutes from me. So I see those guys quite a bit. And let's see who else. I think that's about it. I communicate with Deron and Eric Carr on Facebook.
Right.
But everybody's sort of doing their own thing. I think, when you have a close-knit group of people, you don't have to talk every day to still feel that closeness.
Exactly.
We could go 2 years and then see each other. Oh, and James Barnes came. So his son is here in Atlanta. So we ate dinner together. So I try to keep up with him, as much as I can.
Yeah. So you mentioned we watched all the basketball games together through text messages. Your thoughts on the team this year and Coach Shrew?
Man, I love them. I love watching them. I think, their energy, and even when Chambers was there, I think the energy that those coaches brought, I think the players are much more talented, and I see their ball handling and just the ability to do things on the floor. And I think game situations, I think that's what Coach Parkhill was probably the master at, but I see in Coach Shrew some of those type things that he's brought in, whether it's from the NBA level or Purdue with the team that he has now. So I watch every game, so I enjoy watching them. I'm a tough critic on the guards always, as you know. So we've had some good ones over the years.
Yeah. I think it's a great product that's out there. They're fun to watch. They're shooting the shit out of the ball. I think our big guys will come along. Keba, he's like, he reminds me of Deggett. Like he's Bambi, he's just getting his legs under him. Yeah. But once Dave hit that weight room, man, he was a beast.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm looking. I miss Pat to death. I loved him, and luckily now that he's down in Florida, I'll get to catch some games and support him. But Shrew's got him going in the right direction, and it's fun to watch him play this year. And I think they're going to shake up some people.
I think so too, Brian. They play good defense. They're not a big team, but they get after it, and that's what it's all about. They got a lot of heart.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I appreciate the minutes. It was a pleasure. It's not like we communicate all the time, even though we're several years apart, but family is family. So it's always good to connect with you. And make sure you give the lovely bride Gloria a hug and all the girls. Let me finish with this. My father has a theory that the number of hearts you broke growing up is directly proportional to the number of daughters you have. Is there anything to that?
Hey, your father's a wise man. That's all I'm gonna say.
All the best, man. To you.
All
All
right.
right. Take care.